What can you use to estimate the exposure of humans to toxic chemicals? Mother milk was one of the very good indicator on how much you've been exposed to chemicals in there. And air can also be used as an indicator. When I think about it, you can also look at because you know your hair grows. So if you take one that's very close to your head, you find different chemicals that on the end of the hair. So people that have long hair, you can actually take, you can even do the analysis of one hair. If you look at the end part and the beginning of the hair, so you can actually tell about the history of the sport. This is by a Israeli student. That she is now the head of the forensic lab. What's her name? Charlotte, yeah, Charlotte Smith. She got her PhD in actually using hair. This is done on TSU here, using hair as a marker for exposure. She is one of the leading forensic researcher now in the city of Houston. They have the Harris County. And there's some other thing about organochlorine compounds and organophosphorus and all of that stuff in humans. Continuation of this work was actually looking into how different textiles can actually protect you from exposure to chemicals. Like, people that work in the field and spray pesticides. What would, if they were wool or cotton or nylon or something, it makes a difference. We found out that cotton was the best cotton was the best to protect from exposure. So again, this is done by using both chemical analysis and also microscopy, because you can look at the real-time penetration of chemical through the fabrics under the microscope. This is very new work, and we published this just a month ago. I think it says 2017 somewhere. Very, very recent. Now, you probably heard that recently that people buying more of LED LED, which is light emitted diode lights, replacing the old-fashioned light, and it's more efficient. It uses less energy, and it lasts longer, and it's more expensive. But everybody, in the long run, you save money because it lasts much longer. But we found that it has a little drawback in here. And the drawback, and even this morning there was a talk in the TV about the dangers of the blue part of the LED light. Okay, so for example, if you look at the tungsten, the old-fashioned tungsten lamp, it produces mostly red, very small amount of blue. Then you move to the neon light, or the normal light that we use here. It has white composition here, but it has, slightly little blue light, but more than the sun. And then when you move to the LED light, biological system. So when we tested some biological organisms that are actually exposed to different colors of LED lights, we found that the blue light causes great disturbance to the biological functionality of the nematode, the C. elegans. And we just published this last month, like I said. So people would have to be concerned now, and like I said, this morning there was something in the news about you have to be careful about how much blue in the LED light that you buy. And we do have in my lab some spectrophotometer that can actually read the emitted light. So you can put the lamp in front of it and find out how much blue light. So again, this is environmental research, but you see, you don't have to be exposed to chemical only. You can be exposed to physical, like lights like this, or radiation, which is not chemical, and you get harmful effect. And then we also found out that the fatty acid profiling, you know that every living organism has lipids, fat and oil, made of triglyceride, and when you hydrolyze them, you get fatty acids. And the fatty acid profiling, when you look at the profiling of fatty acids in any living organism, you can use that as a marker of exposure to, because many of the environmental factors may actually affect your fatty acid profiling. And then we move from what and where to how and why. Now, to answer that, we need to know what is the fate, what happened to a chemical when it's entered the environment, the fate and the mechanism of action. And you can monitor that by, feeding animals to the toxic chemical and see what happened to it, or you can actually do a photochemical studies, and you can use that for something in the future. It's called photo remediation. In other words, cleaning the environment by using electromagnetic radiation to break the chemicals, because we know that the chemicals under light can actually be transported to another chemicals. So we did some of that work. Also, what the behavior of the chemical, like let's say that you're filling up your tank with gasoline and you spill gasoline in your hands. I mean, it's more safe now, but in the old days you have to, there's always a chance that you get gasoline touching your skin when you fill your car. But it is very important to know the disproportionate, how the chemical actually distributes itself by exposure through the skin, or through if you eat something, or you inhale it. So inhalation and dermal and oral will give you actually some idea about what the chemical can be distributed in the organism. So we use in this very interesting technique, which was actually mostly infrared under the microscope, infrared microscopy. So you look at the section of the skin, for example, under the microscope using infrared, not the visible light, and you get some results in that. Then you need to know the kinetics of that, how fast it disappears, how fast it moves from one end to another. It's called pharmacokinetics. This is transformation of the chemical to another chemical. All of that stuff dealing with how actually chemicals behaves in the living organism. For example, we found out some time ago, this is back in 1988 or 86, that some of this pesticide, when chicken get exposed to, that they go directly to the brain. So we're glad that we don't eat the brain of chicken, but then some people eat brains of cows. I don't know if is it common here in the United States that people eat brains? But in many countries, they eat the head.
China.
Pig brains, pig
The
feet,
Chinese
pig,
eat the brain,
pig nose.
Well, right, some.
but the brain has some, yeah.
The
I mean, in
rich
Egypt,
people-
for example, we eat a lot of, we fry the brain.
Oxtails,
Monkey
oxtails.
brain.
And the eye
Fried
too, and we eat monkeys. We don't eat monkeys.
No, it's in China. It's for rich
Put some
people.
gravy
China,
on that
yeah.
brain. I'll eat that. Come on, kid.
That's all. I want to ask one question.
Yeah,
It's about the research. For example, the research, what you've done, how many years it takes?
remember the first slides? I said 50 years of research. I started, and me and Dr. Wilson about the same age. We started at about the same time. We had about 50 years of research. Now, it is called research, not search. That means we do things over and over and over, many times, to make sure that, when you do search, you do it one time. When you do research, that you have to do the experiment over and over using a different system. So, for example, the work that we did with the LED light, it took 1 year. And this was a master degree project for one graduate student. The work on the hair as a marker, it was a PhD project. It took about 2.5 years of actual lab work. See, when you work for master's degree, the average is 2 years. The first year is you taking classes and all of that stuff, and then you need to do research in the lab at least 2 semesters. So roughly speaking, people that get master's degree, they spend at least 1 year in the lab, in addition to the classes that you take. If you're doing a PhD, the average, and this is actually nationwide, is 4 years. Most of the people, they finish in 4 years. Some they finish in 5, and some exception they finish in 3. But most of the people, you take about 4.
Well, you can skip them out.
Right.
Dr. Sal, I asked that
Yes.
question for some reason. For example, pig has similar organs to the
Right.
human, right? For example, what causes cancer, right? For example,
Well-
we have a certain food which
Right.
is cheap.
Right.
For example, if we will feed that pig for 10 years or 15 years for certain food, for example, we assume
Right, right.
will cause cancer. We could have identified, for example, that food will
Yeah.
cause the kidney
Actually,
cancer or
FDA and EPA are doing that all the
They
time,
do that?
finding out.
for 10,
Because
20
when
years.
you're dealing with toxic chemical, there are 2 things you need to be aware of. One is called acute toxicity. That is one dose, immediate effect. Like this guy, the Korean guy that died in the airport, a young lady walked in and put the liquid in his face. The brother of the North Korean president, yeah. And it was killed in 5 minutes. That is called acute toxicity. Like if you accidentally take poison in your, you take cyanide or something, it has the immediate effect. Immediate in toxicology is within 24 hours. So if you take a dose and it affects you, either by getting sick or die, within 24 hours, it's called acute. Okay? But if you expose to a chemical that is not toxic at that level, but over your lifespan, then that's the chemical called chronic effect, and most of the time the